Hey guys, Dre here, and I was watching MotoGP's true season opener at Jerez this past weekend, and in the back of my head, as a Marquez fan and as a observer of Honda as a manufacturer and a bike, deep down I always kind of knew this day would come, and it doesn't make it any less painful now it's arrived. Now, I'm talking MotoGP in this video. I don't normally talk MotoGP on this channel very much. I don't know whether there's demand to talk about races on a regular basis like I do with Formula 1. If you do want to see more MotoGP, let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. But for those that didn't see it, Marc Marquez had not only one but two massive accidents at the first Spanish Grand Prix we had this past weekend. Both of them happened at turn 3, one of the fastest corners on the track. Actually, no, technically it's turn 4. Sorry. I guess it's turn 3/4. It's a long left-hander on the first sector of the track. And the first time round, the bike got loose from underneath Marc and yeeted him into the gravel. Somehow, because he's Marc Marquez, he was able to save it. Ran it through the gravel. He fell to 16th he fell to 16th in the middle of the race in the early goings. He was clearly the fastest man on track even before the incident. He had just taken the lead and looked like he was about to assert control on the race. But then, of course, that incident happens. He falls to 16th. He climbs back through the field at a rate of knots, and with a handful of laps to go, he's back in the second group. Quartararo has already gone off and has got multiple seconds in his back pocket by now, but he's just overtaken Dovizioso for third, and he's looking good to overtake Maverick Vinales and finish in second, despite an accident that would have had any other man off the bike. Simple as that. And then he has another incident at the same corner. The bike chucks him into the gravel at over 90 miles an hour. This time Marquez can't save it, and he breaks his arm. He breaks his arm. He's had a surgery on it, I believe, as we speak, as I'm recording this on Tuesday, July 21st. And there's early rumblings he won't be back till Brno on August 9th, which I think is 3 races away. Competitively speaking, in a shortened calendar, it's probably the end of Marc Marquez's, 4-year reign as MotoGP champion, you know. It's effectively a season ender, because if you miss 4 races in MotoGP, you're not winning the championship, and this is when we had a 20-race calendar. We're not getting 20 races this year in MotoGP. We're set to have 13, maybe up to 17, depending on how the COVID situation shakes up. Which proves the point that, essentially, mistakes are going to be even more critically punished this year. And if you're a Honda, you probably kind of saw this coming. This day has always been coming. And for those that wanted to say that Marquez pushed it too hard, maybe there's a case you can make there, but I'll give you an example as to why I don't agree with that mentality. I don't know if anybody ever watched the Dorktown series on SB Nation that John Boyce did with Alex Rubinstein on the Seattle Mariners. It's why I've got that Griffey jersey back there. I was quite inspired by that documentary. It's one of my favourites I've ever seen in sports. And they talk about the time that Seattle, that legendary Seattle team of Randy Johnson, Ken Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez, a very young Alex Rodriguez had beaten the Yankees the first time Seattle made the playoffs and effectively saved the team. John made a great point about that in part 5, in that if you want to be a Seattle Mariners fan, you don't get to just embrace that moment and then bypass all the other crazy and terrible shit that happened to the team between then and now, and then obviously going for it. The line he said was, "You're not ready for this team yet." This is all that Marc Marquez has ever known. This is the only way he's ridden a motorcycle his entire career. If you're criticising him for that, you might as well criticise him for everything he's ever done. The genius of Marc is that he's able to push bikes and push the limits of what we knew was possible on a motorcycle. He's been doing that for the better part of a decade now. And criticising him for that, well, it's kind of a when he's already won 8 world championships in 3 different categories. And that's the problem. This is a Honda problem. This is not a Marc Marquez problem. Marc Marquez is a freak. Everyone that knows in MotoGP and breathes MotoGP knows the man is a freak who has done incredible things on a motorcycle that we didn't know that was possible. The way Honda has built their team is a goddamn mess, and I think we're finally seeing the house of cards fall under the reign of Alberto Puig. This isn't a new thing. We talked about this in 2015 when the Honda was so uncontrollable, Marquez crashed 6 times in Grand Prix. And amazingly, Marquez still won 5 races that season. But that was when he was double world champion in the top flight and lost his crown to Jorge Lorenzo in one of the greatest and one of the most controversial MotoGP seasons ever. You can read about it in this book. Shameless plug. Anyway, the point is that since Puig has taken over that team, there's been fundamental problems with that Honda that they've never really tried to resolve. It's been an incredibly aggressive motorcycle that really only one man has been able to either ride competently or mask its problems, and that's Marc Marquez. It's no coincidence Dani Pedrosa got pushed out of that team more and more in the latter years or the early periods of when Marc was dominating. And by any measure, Dani Pedrosa is one of the best bike riders ever. 31 career top flight wins, best rider to have never won a top flight title without a doubt. He was pushed out the door for Jorge Lorenzo. And Pedrosa was one of the key development hands in that bike to keep it relatively controllable. He was gone, they brought in Jorge Lorenzo, and Lorenzo was a bust. It was already proven at Ducati it took him the better part of an entire season to get used to a brand new bike, and even before the incident at Assen, Lorenzo was awful on that motorcycle. Look, this is how bad it was. Lorenzo faked a retirement to get out of that team after 1 season. And don't say it wasn't fake, because he's already put himself in the shop window to try and rejoin Ducati if Dovizioso doesn't re-sign, which is up in the air in its own right now. And that's crazy enough as it is. Resources constantly got pushed out of the back door. And if you want more proof on Pedrosa's ability to develop a bike, he's now KTM's test rider. And look at KTM at Jerez. Pol Espargaro in the leading group alongside elite runners in the sport like Dovi, Vinales, Morbidelli, Quartararo, etc. And Brad Binder, despite going off early on in the race, had race-winning level pace on the motorcycle. Binder would have comfortably finished in that leading group if he had gotten a clean race. KTM looks like it's back. KTM looks like a team that could challenge for podiums in the dry this year. A lot of that is down to Pedrosa, a guy that Honda booted out. Crutchlow, who injured himself in warm-ups for that same race, broke a scalpioid. He might be back this weekend, he might not be for round 2. Crutchlow was another guy that's been pushed out of the door to bring in Alex Marquez. And Crutchlow constantly complained about the Honda for years, did not like how it rode. He never got resources to develop the bike. He was always almost forced to apologise on multiple occasions for the problems and the issues that bike had. Again and again and again, with a Honda official looking over his back shoulder, making him apologise. And then they go push him out too for Alex Marquez, who again is a notoriously slow learner. He's a great rider. He's the only man to have ever won a Moto2 and a Moto3 World Championship. But at the same time, he's a slow learner. It took him 5 seasons to win the Moto2 Championship. He's not a guy that goes in and hits the ground running like a Maverick Vinales did, or someone that climbs through the ranks quickly like Valentino Rossi did in the younger part of his career, or with Marc Marquez. And I'm not comparing anyone to Marc Marquez is problematic in this current timeline, but that's what this is. They've butchered everything around their team to build solely on Marc Marquez, and they doubled down on Marc Marquez, thinking that, hey, Marc will just bail us out of this jam. And now Marc is hurt. We don't know how long for, and he's probably not winning the championship this year. And Puig had the gall this morning to come out and say that the bike is still great. No, it's not. The bike clearly is not great, because if it was great, you'd have more than one front runner of it. Alex Marquez was in the lower end of the points. Crutchlow did not race due to a crash in warm-up. Marquez has to be superhuman to win on that motorcycle, and it's taken a potentially season-defining incident for people to finally wake up, smell the coffee, and realise this. They doubled down on Mark, and it's come back to bite them in the arse, because now their season's in tatters. They got to build around Alex Marquez and probably Stefan Bradl standing in until Marquez is healthy again. By that point, the season's already probably lost. And then what? What do you do? And you might have even pissed Mark off himself because you've dumped his brother out of the team, demoted him to LCR, and brought up Pol Espargaro instead, who is still one of the best riders in the world, and might actually be downgrading from the KTM he's on right now, and he has to learn how to ride a brand new bike all over from scratch next year. So where the hell is this team going? Like, where's the direction of this team? And it all stems back to Puig. He's the Helmut Marko of MotoGP. The parallels between him and Red Bull Racing are alarming. And the only difference is that Red Bull Racing have had an extended warranty on their 4 championships they won during the V8 era. And I think only this year people are starting to realise just how overrated Red Bull are as a Formula 1 team. It's the same principle here. Because what have Honda got left right now? Alex Marquez is going to take a year to even get used to this motorcycle, and a Honda that's had the awful reputation of being difficult to ride and impossible for rookies. It butchered Scott Redding's career. It butchered Jack Miller's career, who's only kicked on now years later on a Ducati. And the pattern will go on and on and on. If it takes something like this for them to realise that, maybe I'd forgive them, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be any change in that Repsol Honda camp anytime soon. And it's alarming. And Puig's in the middle of a power struggle because he clearly... Like, you don't sign Marc Marquez to a 4-year extension and then dump his brother afterwards. It's clearly a below-the-belt move. But here we are. For those asking me, because people have asked me, who do I see as title favourite? Now that he's gone. I mean, there's names people could throw out there. Maverick Vinales, Alex Rins, who again took a nasty incident in qualifying. He had to miss the race. He probably isn't going to race this weekend either. Quartararo, who of course won his first Grand Prix this past weekend, and of course is a fantastic talent and an incredibly likeable kid. And, you know, he might be the Marquez contender we've always wanted. We need a new name at the front of the sport. Unfortunately, I'm going to give you an old name, and that's Andrea Dovizioso. We still have 2 rounds in Austria coming up where Dovi is virtually unbeatable if the bike underneath him is set up properly. And it's easy to forget in the midst of this race at Jerez. Andrea Dovizioso was on an operating table 2 weeks ago for a broken collarbone. And now, like 2 weeks later, he's at Jerez and he's on the podium. I think his best ever finish he had at Jerez. Certainly his best since being with Ducati. It's an incredible result, and no one talked about it because the people don't care about Dovi on the same level that they do Maverick or Quartararo or Marquez or Valentino Rossi, etc. For all the talk about the next wave of young stars coming through, like Vinales, like Fabio, like Rins, like Jack Miller, no one's beaten Dovi yet, let alone Marquez. Dovi's been the championship runner-up 3 years running, including last year. He's your new milestone. He's your new yardstick. Watch Andrea Dovizioso. Listen to me now, believe me later on. But let me know what you thought of Jerez as a race. Let me know what you think of the Honda situation. You know, is Marquez's season over? It probably is, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the comments down below. I've been Dre. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Sayonara. I can't believe I got to add a last-minute breaking news addition to this video, but in the hour since I started recording this, Simon Patterson reported a breaking news story that Marc Marquez is only set to miss 1 race with this broken arm injury. He's aiming to be back at Brno on August 9th, only missing the 2nd race at Jerez that's coming up this weekend. There was no nerve damage to the arm. The arm operation was a success. Because, of course, It's still an enormous ask, having to make up what could be as much as a 50-point gap if Quartararo wins again in the second race at Jerez, but an alarming sign about what could be happening here. Marquez might still be eligible for the championship, although everything I said in the previous 15 minutes I believe to be true. Thanks for watching.